Everybody could find a seat in here. All right, if we could have a roll call, please.
Tyler Marco.
Here.
Mark Ferry.
Here.
Steve Bellich.
Here.
Amanda Cook. Here. Jacqueline Trainier. Here. Rachel Ventura. Present. Tom Weigel.
Here. If you could please stand. Steve, if you want to lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up, we have the approval of minutes for December 10th.
Motion.
So moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have new business. First up, we have zoning case ZC-19-059, which is a zoning map amendment from R1 to I1 in Homer Township, commonly known as 14409 South Archer Avenue, Lockport, Illinois, County Board District Number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case ZC 19-059. I do want to advise the committee that the attorney and applicant are not in attendance to this morning's meeting. Staff has not had previous communication with the attorney that this would be the case. In previous.
Did I read this wrong? The first case, right? 059?
Correct.
And you're saying the attorney? You're not? Because I see Mr. Kavanaugh sitting there, so.
That is correct. Mr. Kavanaugh is not representing this client.
All right, well, I think we can, they didn't give notice, and I think we can proceed, so.
Okay.
That's no problem. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Yeah, I lived there.
Let me get your mic in.
I lived there. And I was at the township meeting, and the people at the township meeting were very upset about passing this. And I guess the townships can't force a 2/3 vote anymore. Is that true?
Correct.
When did that happen? I thought they could do that.
Pursuant to state law, only municipalities within a mile and a half can legally record
Right, I
a legal
mean,
objection.
wasn't that, I thought in the past that we had objections by townships and forced a 2/3 vote.
So townships could object to special use permits where other guys cannot. They're trying to change that.
David.
Any township with authority with regard to legally effectiveness of the vote changed with the last census when we number certain population question.
Okay.
Claire, ask a question.
Yeah, but I just want to point out that people in the town have numerous problems over and over again with this. With the guy that owns it, there's no way in hell that we should be voting to approve it.
Well,
I mean, I don't know who came to complain or anything, but you know, I'm dead against it. And I think that you know, if we're going to do anything on it, you know, you should listen to people that live there.
Well, that's what I was making sure the committee was okay with moving forward.
I'm okay with killing it or something.
So one of my concerns is, you know, that, and first of all, thank you for the 5 different maps showing that that you guys want to move this forward. I hear that loud and clear, and I really appreciate that. But one of my concerns is the forward thinking of this. There's a whole row of residents behind this property, and the 2 of the aspects are industrial. I think it's a stretch to say that entire area is industrial. I I saw that the mixed use was on the map. But my concern is that, you know, we give him the rest of the property to be industrial, and then a year from now, he sells the property, and now the entire corner lot there can have a giant warehouse right behind people's yards. And it's not that this doesn't happen. Check out Romeoville and Bluff Road. Check out most of the area around Romeoville where they put warehouses right up behind people's homes.
Rolling too.
And so, you know, it is mixed use, but that's going to be a large property then for industrial use, which doesn't stop them later in a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from putting up something that the residents don't want there. And once it's zoned that, what legal standing do we have then? So I have concerns about this. I mean, I'm with Steve on this. Right now, it doesn't look like this is the best spot, but I don't know what the intentions of this homeowner is, and I know that we can't always make a decision based on who's there now versus who's there in the future. So I think that we need to take a little time really considering is, you know, what the residents have to say, but if they're not here, we haven't received any.
The residents are here, the attorney is not here, and they did not give notice, so my opinion is that we just keep going since they didn't give notice, and, I mean, they knew when the meeting was, so you can give your
Summary?
your summary, and then we'll have the public. Well, there's a lot of people signed up. So
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So zoning case CC 19059 involves a 2.75 acre split zone parcel where the front portion of the property is zoned I1 along Archer Avenue and the rear 1.45 acres is zoned R1. This split zoning has existed since the county's comprehensive rezoning in 1978. Since the county no longer split zones parcels, basically we also encourage any split zone parcels that are in existence to either go through a split zone determination to decide which zoning district is the prevalent zoning district for that, or to rezone the portion, if they can find a legal description, to rezone under a single zoning district. A brief history of this particular property in this area. The applicant owns the two adjacent parcels directly southwest of the property and operates a construction services business. The applicant recently purchased the subject parcel and began storing construction equipment on the parcel. Again, it's split zone to I1, R1. Since the R1 portion started to have construction equipment, a complaint was received at our office, investigated, and a violation was issued for outdoor storage without a principal structure on this parcel. Part of the remedy when the applicant came in to meet with staff was to pursue a rezoning for the R1 portion so that the parcel could become a single zoning lot, so entirely I1 if the county board approved, allowing the applicant to then potentially consolidate the rest of the parcels into a single lot. With that, there would have to be, further site development requirements, outdoor screening, land use buffers along any residential uses or residentially zoned properties. The R1 portion of the subject site is located, as you see in the maps, along West 144th Place, which abuts the 4A Unit 7 subdivision that was planned back in the 50s, so an old subdivision. Staff finds that R1 is not appropriate within this corridor between Archer and north of 144th Place, just because of the ingress-egress would be difficult with the floodplain, as well as just the development and recent zoning action within the area has been more commercial or industrial requests. In terms of the I-1 properties to the southwest, the most recent was in 2014 when they rezoned from R1 to I-1. PCC first heard the case back in November, and the attorneys requested it to be tabled and continued. Objectors have been present for all the public zoning meetings, and you have received several memos containing further email objections, an objection from Homer Township, as well as some clarifications from the staff report. In terms of planning and zoning, this past week, they voted unanimously to deny the request for the map amendment. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions from committee members? Jackie?
If I understood what you're saying, we're the ones that are basically pushing the issue of making this one lot all one zone.
Correct.
That's our rules.
In terms
as a
to
county.
rectify the split zoning
Yeah, we want to eliminate split zone.
Correct.
Other questions from Rachel?
Okay, I'm going to present something and we can talk about later in business, but some of these cases fall into this. Is there an ability for us to make like an I-3 or I-4 that allows for businesses like this and some of these other ones that we've seen function in a way that is great for their capacity, but then they later can't sell it off and become a warehouse that would have to be I-1 zoning? I mean, is that something that we can consider as a committee to create?
Who wants to take that one?
Not me.
So, did you guys hear the question?
I was going to say, I think this is more of a legal opinion if we're able to do something like this, so.
Sorry, David and I were.
Yeah, so go ahead, Rachel.
I was just saying that some of these cases have started popping up where there are businesses that are trying to do their business, but in order to do so, they need to be an I-1. But our fear as a county is that I-1 allows them to then later sell the property and put a warehouse up, which the residents would not want. So is there a way to create a category like an I-3 or an I-4 that would allow them to do the business that they need to do on this property, but then if they sold the land later, it could only be a similar business like this that operated there?
Once the zoning has been changed, zoning's changed. So
I understand that. I'm saying creating a new category so that it would operate, this business could operate in its entirety. So if it was an I-3, for example, and then they could do the same business they're operating today, right? But then later they couldn't sell that land off and it'd be an I-1. That entity would then...
No, because that just goes back to what I said. Once you change the zoning, if you create a new one, an I-3, you can't limit the business that's going to be on there. If it's allowed in that particular zoning, it's allowed in that zoning.
No, but right now we're just allowed on I-1. So what I'm saying is if it's I-3, then they would have to rezone it to I-1 if that was the case, and we'd have to go back through this board to do so.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand your question, because this is what I'm hearing, that you're saying create a new zoning, for example, and then in that new zoning, if they go pursue that particular zoning, to then say you can only do X for yourself.
No, type of businesses like this, like we've seen landscaping businesses like this, we've seen, some of these mini truck terminal type things where they're bringing in things that are like the truck part that we had a little while ago, where they're not full-on warehouses, they're not full-on industrial the way that many of us think of industrial. They're mom-and-pop businesses that are operating under kind of archaic laws at this point because we haven't updated, the uses of some of these. So what I'm saying is create a category that encompasses all of these types of businesses.
It sounds like you're not talking about I think it's more like a particular use within that zoning. So you want to exclude a particular use within that zoning. Is that what you're saying? Because I don't know how you could...
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how to explain this any better. I'm trying to find a compromise between having businesses within our community still be able to be there without impacting people's lives. You put a giant warehouse in the back of my house, it's going to impact my life.
Sure.
If a truck guy is coming in and dropping parts off here and there, it doesn't impact it as much. Maybe it impacts the roadway, in which case we can make certain qualifications for that, or the highway commissioner can, right? But it's different. There's trees all around it, and they're minding their own business and doing their job and keeping the noise down, versus, there's a plethora of industrial work. And so what I'm saying is, perhaps it's time that we categorize what that industrial work looks like and what's acceptable to have in the community and what's acceptable to only have in a highly industrial area.
Well, it seems as if you're still, again, focusing on a particular use within that zoning. So if you are focusing on a particular use, you have to change the use and say this use is allowed, this is not. Bottom line is if you've got a zoning, you can't have something remain within a particular zoning and then later take it out of that zoning. If it's going to be an I-1,
Question?
whatever the case may be.
About her comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what Rachel's proposing is that we create a new zoning category that would have a more restrictive use than I-1. So we have those permissive uses, and she's saying that there's a lot of permissive uses in I-1. So she's saying to create a further category that would have less permissive use, and then that would allow us to, by code, restrict some of the use. And it wouldn't be, I don't think, targeted towards a specific industry or business, but I agree with her that we have seen like a lot of landscaping businesses and stuff come up, and they're agricultural and they want to go to I-1, but there is a lot of permissive uses there. While we don't have an issue with the landscaping business, we're afraid that if it's sold, it could be something much larger, and then the adjoining community would not be happy with it. So if we created a whole new zoning category, then we could, have less permissive uses. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I understand that. You're creating actually a whole new zoning district.
Right.
So,
Well, so I'm with Rachel in being interested in creating that because it seems like month after month we run into the same issue. So instead of doing that, I want to make it easier for residents to do what they need to do to operate their business and make it fit the surrounding community. So I think that's something we should definitely pursue in the future, Chairman.
And I think that's something that can certainly be explored.
Okay.
That was actually kind of my point. I was going to try to explain what Rachel was saying because clearly we weren't understanding each other. I understood what you were saying. And I don't know all the different zoning categories. My understanding is there is only an I-1. There is no I-2, I-3, I-4. And we do have 2s and 3s in the A's and in the R's. I just wanted them in the I's.
All right, Steve?
Yeah, currently, how many violations are existing on the
Currently, on the subject parcel before you, there are, I believe, 2 open. One was issued after the November 19th meeting, when was received about site work being done, so there were some trees removed on the property without site development permit. A violation has been issued. Our code enforcement division is working with the applicant to resolve that. It is my understanding that they were waiting for the map amendment to decide which route to go with how they're going to further develop the property. If they get the I-1, they can basically look at the whole property instead of just the specific area that they have to correct. The other one is with regards to non-permitted uses. Again, kind of with the outdoor storage without having a principal structure on the property. And this was issued in October, but it also began back in July. So we've been working with the applicants to come forward with the map amendment request and the zoning action to come into compliance since July.
See what this reminds me of, because I've heard all the negatives already, but when a couple months ago, we had a guy that just ignored the rules and expected us to change the rules to fix them so that he can do what he wants. But he didn't pay attention to the rules and he said, I didn't know. And you remember that, guys? All right, this is the same type of scenario. This guy does whatever he wants and says, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. Right? That's what's going on. Again, that's happening here. And it's probably going to happen a lot of other times. But, we can't let people just do whatever they want. And then, well, in a good world we could, but...
You want them to.
I'm one of the people that don't like the rules. You know that. I don't believe in the rules. I think some of these rules are stupid. But the other side of it is, there are rules. And if we just let people say, well, they don't exist, so, or I didn't know, or whatever, and then come here and then ask for immunity, basically, that's kind of crazy. So, to me, this is the same scenario as it was before, what we had. And we're, like I said, we'll have more. So I get what Rachel's talking about, changing, creating a new zoning and all this. But what do you do with people that intentionally violate the rules?
Well, we are...
Because if I violate it, you're coming to my house or you're hauling my butt to jail.
Well, we are complaint-based, so any complaints we receive at our office, we do investigate them. If we do find that they are in violation of the zoning ordinance, we do put them in violation. And then there's a process where we give them time to come into compliance. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks. Sometimes it might involve a little bit more time with site development, working with engineers, trying to get all the engineering with that process. And then if they still do not come into compliance, we have the option to go to adjudication or even court to bring them into compliance. So there is a process. It just a lot of times takes longer than overnight to rectify those situations.
Does anybody else have questions about this before we have the public speak? All right, so first up with us that signed up to speak on ZC 19059 is Heather Blackpool. I'm sorry for the last name, so I'm going to be the first to tell you I'm terrible with last names, so I apologize.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I speak for just a moment?
Is it okay? Do you mind since I called you first?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, just wait.
I'm Richard Kavanaugh, an attorney, offices at 111 North Ottawa Street. When I came in this morning, I advised staff that I was not representing the four models. However, I received a call from my partner, Thomas Osterberger, who is the attorney. He said that he has dictated a letter, addressed it to the staff, saying that the application is being withdrawn. So I'm here to say that if you want to cut this short, the application will be withdrawn today.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Since you did come and sign up, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a moot issue, but since you have a right to speak, I guess you can if you want, but it's dead, so.
Is it official?
Once the letter is received?
Once we receive the letter, it would be official.
But if the letter's not received right now? then-
So let me answer a clarification question really quick. So,
Yeah, we have to table it.
so what would our course of action be if we were just advised that? I mean, we would still have to vote on this, right?
If he's going to submit a letter to withdraw it, I mean, if you had it right now, it's simply withdrawn, that's the end of the story. There's no need to have anyone speak at that point. He just put it on the record that he's going to withdraw this one, so we can consider it withdrawn.
So it's officially, we can consider it officially. So State's Attorney's Office says it's officially withdrawn, so it's, according to our lawyer, officially done.
Is that on the record today?
That is
Yes.
on the record right up. I'll let you repeat that with the microphone on, sorry.
Yeah, got a guy behind you recording it, it's in front of everybody here, and he just said it on the record.
It's withdrawn.
So,
May I ask
so
one question?
yeah, go up to the microphone. real
Thank
quick.
you. I'm sorry, thank you for letting me answer the question. I understand that it is officially withdrawn at this point. It's now almost 11 o'clock. The meeting started at 10:30. No notice was given. I understand that. We just received that notice. Now that it is withdrawn, no further meetings will be held on that, and they will have to restart the process. Is that my
Yeah,
understanding?
so from our standpoint, this is no longer a zoning case, so if they want to come back, they have to start all the way from the beginning.
Okay. And how, there are current violations, I think I sent an email to each of you. There are active violations on both properties. And in their application, they actually did not mark that it was to rectify any of those violations because those violations were opened before the application. So now what happens with those? Because I know that was a concern for some of you speaking.
I'll let Stan handle that one.
So in terms of the outstanding violations, they still will have to come into compliance with them. They would just have to proceed with a different venue than the death amendment. So a site development permit will still be required to replace the trees that they tore down and to improve the property.
And then just a follow-up question with that answer. The first, not the first complaint, but the open complaint, a letter was dated 7/11/2019 from Will County Land Use Department, giving them 21 days from the date of this letter to maintain or to take corrective action. There was another one on this property that they gave them until December 6th to come into compliance, and then again December 21st, I believe it was, to maintain compliance with the sediment erosion control, sewage, things like that. So how will those be handled? Because it's my understanding that they're not being fined.
Can I just say, at this point in time, this doesn't appear before this committee anymore, so maybe these questions could be addressed directly to staff.
Thank you.
You could make sure to get your contact.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, so.
I appreciate your time.
Yep, so.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to put it on the record. I have a concern when somebody is 6 months behind on rectifying something that we've let them know about. And I don't know our process, I apologize for that, but I hope we're finding the heck out of this guy for not following our rules in a timely fashion. I just want to put that on the record.
So, Mr. Guzman, do we need a motion just to remove this from the agenda, or we can just move on?
Just move on.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming if you were for that case.
Thank you.
All righty. Next up, we have number 2, which is zoning case ZC-19-0667, which is a zoning map amendment from A1 to I1 in Green Garden Township, commonly known as 24405 South LaGrange Road, Frankfort, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. So,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
good morning.
So this is, the applicant for this case seeks to rezone an improved portion of a property with the intent to divide that portion into a separate parcel and rent the property for uses permitted under I-1. The overall entire lot measures just over 55 acres in area, and the property is improved with an office building, greenhouses, outdoor storage bins, hoop houses, and numerous small sheds, which previously served fawn landscaping and nursery operating on the property under a special use permit. So the subject of the map amendment are the 11.95 improved acres at the southwest corner of the property. And should the map amendment go through, the remainder parcel would retain the A1 zone. There are existing industrial uses 620 feet north of the subject parcel. There are 2 I-1 parcels at 24145 and 24149 South LaGrange Road, which were rezoned from A1 to I1 by the county board in 2016 to allow the owner to develop what at that time was a single parcel for a sewer and water business. That parcel was subdivided into 2 lots in 2019, each with I-1 zoning. In 2019, the county board approved a special use permit for heavy equipment sales and rental for the former Lot 2, 24149 South LaGrange Road. So the proposed new parcel has been improved with sufficient structures and paving to make it unsuitable to revert to agricultural use. And the trend of development along South LaGrange Road is toward more intensive uses, including industrial. This map amendment is consistent with the Will County Land Resource Management Plan, which recommends locating freestanding industry within easy access to arterial roadways. And it is also consistent with the Green Garden Township Comprehensive Land Use Plan, which allows light industrial uses directly along major roadways. The map amendment was approved by both the Green Garden Township Planning Commission and the Township's Board of Trustees. The IDNR found no reason to object to the proposal. The IDOT found that they recommended to provide cross-access easement to the remaining A1 parcel to prevent landlocking that parcel from any future development. And the Will South Cook Soil and Water Conservation District had no objection. However, you do have a memo regarding the Village of Frankfort Plan Commission, who have reviewed the proposed rezoning and unanimously recommended that the Frankfort Village Board legally object to the map amendment. The nearest property in the Village of Frankfort is approximately 1.25 miles away from the subject parcel. And at the January PZC meeting, staff recommended approval of the request, which the PZC approved with a unanimous vote.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for this one before we let the public speak? Anybody? All right, so we have some people signed up to speak for this one. First up, we have Zachary Brown. Come up to the podium.
Thank you. I'm Zach Brown with the Village of Frankfort, the Assistant Director of our Development Services Department, here representing Frankfort on behalf of this case. As was noted, our Plan Commission did review this project at a meeting last week. It did unanimously recommend that our village board legally object to it. We have a recently updated comprehensive plan which recommends agricultural uses in this area, given the lack of utility services. And so the issue before us really is one of timing, in that our Plan Commission recommendation to our board will not be considered by our village board until their next meeting, which is January 21st, which unfortunately is after the date that the Will County Board is scheduled to review. So I'm simply here on behalf of the village of Frankfort to respectfully request that this committee consider tabling this issue to allow Frankfort to complete its review and forward any comments, suggestions, or perhaps legal objections to the county prior to proceeding forward.
Let's see here. Yeah, also signed up for this one, cast on one. I do this to you every time, I'm sorry. Yeah, so,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Cass Glenwood, 339 Allotted Drive, in Lennox, on behalf of the applicant. The Tracy family is seated up there, along with the commercial realtor, Mark Koenig. First thing I want to do is just sort of get a little better perspective on this, what we're dealing with and what we're talking about. If I can forward a couple aerials. And one is a flyer that Mr. Koenig has been using to try to rent out this property since the time the Tracy ceased to operate the lawn landscaping business. Tracy family has been operating here legally at this site for many, many years, operating their family landscape construction business. This happens to a lot of us as we get older, and Mr. Tracy suffered some health setbacks, unable to continue his business. Again, as you'll see from this aerial, the person that we're talking about, the one that was just recently rezoned to I-1, and that is 620 feet closer to the village of Frankfort, is that red roof structure that you'll see at the top of the page. The property that we're talking about here is that large business that you see inside and outside pictures in the flyer, and also the one in the foreground of the other picture. Again, located 620 feet away from I-1 parcel that was zoned in 2016 without objection from the village of Frankfort, and on which this board in November of last year, 2 months ago, allowed sales and rental of heavy equipment. Our clients are not somebody who's violating the rules, something you just talked about a little bit before. They're looking to do this properly to keep this property from becoming void empty. It's empty. As staff said, it can't be used for something else. It can't be reverted to A1. The staff also said, we have no objection from any neighbor. We not only comply with the Green Garden Comprehensive Plan, we received the unanimous support of both the Plan Commission and of the Township Board. And of your Planning and Zoning Commission, with no neighbors objected. We filed this application in September of 2019, and the Village of Frankfort is here now, and the Plan Commission saying they would file a legal objection 1.25 miles away, where no neighbors object, where the township, that where we sit, doesn't object. In fact, they unanimously support it, because that's what their comprehensive plan says now, and has said. But on the fact that they adopted a new comprehensive plan, that is the Village of Frankfort, where we don't sit, in December 2019, last month. And on that basis, a comprehensive plan other than your own, which we comply with, and other than the township where it sits, should prevent us from being zoned I-1, where your plan says it, your ordinance, comply with your ordinance, your staff recommends it, the township recommends it, and they have no objection from any neighbor. And you look at that structure, and you see they cannot be reverted to A1. And it would be taking money out of my client's pocket for no reason. They just spent, at the request of Frankfort Township Fire Department, about $100,000 to sprinkler the entire structure to accommodate this. As you can see the steel structure there, inside and out. It's made for this. There are no objectors, again, other than a village 1.25 miles away, that didn't object to I-1 620 feet north of this. They didn't object to heavy equipment sales around 620 feet north of this, closer to them. And there's no reason to turn this down. And there's no reason to table it, because it does comply with the fees. It does comply with the ordinances. No neighbors object. And the township in which we sit fully supports this, as does your staff and your PCC.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mark Going.
He's our realtor. He's here to answer questions.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Mark?
I just got a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
If the township, if it all falls into the township's comprehensive plan and they're in favor of it, and it's in our comprehensive plan, and we approve that other piece, and then a city, whether it's Frankfort or another city, comes in and says, well, you know what, we're going to change our rules and we're going to go against everybody else, it doesn't seem right. See, to me, I'm just listening to this, it sounds like crazy. You know, so the next, I get up tomorrow morning and I say, everybody was doing one thing, but I'm going to be the only one saying, oh, I guess I shouldn't do that. I'm the only one saying no a lot. But the whole point is that Frankfort shouldn't be able to go against all the other people's comprehensive plans. I would think they have to find a way to make them all jive. And if they're going to go in, it's a mile and a quarter, is that what you said?
It's a mile and a quarter.
So they have up to a mile and a half. And so it's not even in their city. And then they're going to tell us that we can't obey our comprehensive plan and tell the township that, hey, you know what, you don't count, the city counts. That kind of bothers me because we're supposed to represent the unincorporated as well as the cities. So to me, I think that we just got to not table it, or I didn't even know it was going to be tabled, but he said that, but we shouldn't be tabling it. We should vote on it and just allow it.
All right, Steve, thank you. Or Joe?
So first, you know, the first zoning case we had 5 maps, and this has got none. So
Yeah.
it would be, to Steve's point, the comprehensive plan. I've asked to update it, and it sounds like it's maybe very expensive for us to do that. But adding the parts of our plan that are on here right now, it is heavily agricultural in that area. So I'm more inclined to keeping it agricultural. But this goes back to the first thing that I said about the need for a different industrial zoning and I-2 that has different permissions available. I think this would be a perfect example of where we could move to something like that. And I think that would work with the Village of Frankfort with their plan, because something like an I-2 could maybe support an agriculture type zoning. So as far as tabling, I'm in favor of tabling to see if we can create a new zoning category that these type of cases can fit into. I don't know what the rest of the feeling of the board is, but that's the direction I would like to go, because I don't think this is the last case, obviously, we're going to see on something like this. So that's where I stand.
David?
As far as it's an initiative, it'd be at the pleasure of the board through the executive committee if they want to assign the topic. I would just keep in mind, though, that reviewing a matter such as that would take some time and have to be done holistically, possibly even reviewing what I would suggest is all the industrial districts and going through that public process and very thoughtfully considering, you know, initiatives such as that. What I'm getting at is that it would be something to be quick and, you know, probably several months at minimum to take care of something like that and go through a public process.
6 months.
So.
All right, I need it, Amanda.
Thank you. So this is my district. I do think it's a fascinating case because we already have buildings there. And the previous Frankfort plan had this as industrial, and then they've kind of changed their mind. I'm not really keen, the general rule, to change agricultural to industrial. However, when we talked about this today, I think start sooner rather than later on possibly creating another category, zoning category, and that might be a better fit for this. I appreciate all the information. I'm going to make a motion. I'm not going to do it now because I want to hear everybody wants to talk, but I'm going to make a motion to table it just so that we do have another month. We can allow Frankfort to file their legal objection, as is the right, and we can kind of move forward. Maybe there's a better category we can create that this would fit into, but I personally am not comfortable making it I-1. Especially since it is for sale or for lease, it could be something completely different before we know it. So, thank you.
Steve, on Jackie.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with looking at, you know, maybe another, like an I-1 or I-2. I don't have a problem with that. You know, that probably could work. But in this case, they applied for something, and everything was okay. And then out of clear blue sky, the city says no, and it's a mile and a quarter away from the city. And then, so the township's supposed to go stick their head in a bucket and just forget it? They don't count no more? And we don't count anymore with our plan, it meets our plans, it meets the township plans, and it met City of Frankfort, and then all of a sudden they changed it, and now they don't want it, but when they applied, it met the plan. So now, this guy that owns the property, whoever the heck he is, I don't even know, I should say person, because it might be a woman.
Michelle's racing standing right there.
Oh, okay, it's a guy and his wife, right? Okay, well, the couple that own the property, they're gonna be out a whole bunch of money if they got do we want to stick it up their butts because all of a sudden one city changes their plan from what it was when they applied, and it still meets our plan and it meets the township plan? I mean, I don't like that. To me, that's like totally wrong. If Frankfurt were to have their rules intact when this guy applied, and say, hey, you got to follow Frankfurt's rules, I'll go along with it. But it wasn't the case. This guy applied before when it was legal to do whatever. It doesn't make sense to me. And I do like what you said, Rachel, about looking at some other designations. But in this case, this has been applied for when it was legal. So now we're going to go back and start saying, well, you know what? Whatever it was can change by the day. This is what happens if Frankfurt decides not to pass their thing next month when they have their meeting. What if they decide to make it more strict?
But see, that's always the risk.
Mr. Guzman?
Sorry. So I think Mr. Bell does have a point in regards to the fact that you could go ahead and make a new zoning district if you wanted to, but this applicant would not be bound by it. He could, because he's applying now, and he's the ordinances that are applicable nowadays, now that's what he's bound by. He can voluntarily seek the admission to the new zoning district, but that's their call. So that's one thing I wanted to say. I think that point Mr. Bell in that regards. And I think Brian brought up a good point as well, that 6 months from the date of the public hearing, which was at PCC, right, that public hearing last week, if there's no action taken on his request at that point in time, it's automatically approved. So I want to make sure, and that's the reason I'm bringing that up is what David's comments he made earlier. This isn't going to be a timely process of withdrawal.
I got a question though. Could we be sued by the applicant because of if we deny it, he loses money, or we deny it, and then...
Even if he did lose money, we could be sued.
Anybody can sue for anything.
Exactly.
I get that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, if he went to court, I'd lay odds that he'd win.
I'm not going to comment on that. But
well, I'm just saying, if I was a judge, forget about it. I'd go with him.
I'm happy to go along with my fellow board member and table it for a month, but I will say I'm in favor of the applicant getting the zoning that they're requesting. There's been nothing said today, and I doubt that Frankfurt passing a plan is going to change my mind, because I'm not going to the Frankfurt meeting. I live in Bolingbrook. I represent the 4th District. But his business has totally been legal, legit, following, all of our processes. And now we're going to just decide because the town, put something in place, unless I'm missing something. And maybe I'm missing something. But if, they've been following the zoning rules that are all along, and I-1 is down the street, and I just don't see it makes any sense to tear down a building that they just put fire sprinklers in and turn it into a cornfield. That horse left the barn a long time ago. This building didn't pop up yesterday. We've approved it. It's there. So again, unless some new information comes to light, I'm going to be in support of the applicant. But I'll support your motion to wait a month. I don't care.
I'd make a motion.
Hold on, David, with the lawyer.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion, but David, lawyer, then we're going to go Tom. David? Or not David, sorry.
Okay. It's actually 6 months. It's not automatically approved. It's automatically denied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tom?
I have a question for Brian. As far as industrial zoning, we have 2 categories, only I-1 and I-2.
Actually, we have 3 categories, Board Member Weigel. We have I-1, I-2, I-3. I-1 is the least intensive zoning district. As you move to I-3, it's more intensive.
Okay, so they're not going to put a warehouse there? With the
you can put a warehouse in I-1. That's a permitted use.
that is okay?
Yeah, there's a list, the county board has determined a list of permitted uses by right that would require review for zoning compliance with ordinance standards, including engineering standards and building standards. And then there's also a list of special uses that would be permitted in I-1, which would come before this committee and the county board.
But it is the least intensive.
I-1 is the least intensive zoning district.
So I don't think we need to create another category. We got 3 categories already.
So I guess what I'm advocating for is an I-4 that would be more restrictive or least submissive than the current I-1 for cases like this. And I think that it's not that they haven't done anything wrong, it's now that they're trying to sell the property or lease the property. So at the end of the day, really, to Steve's point, to Jack's point, is they did know that this was the condition when they asked for the special use that it could end up in. You know, it's a gamble, right? If you know you've got an agricultural building or agricultural land and you put a building up, it is a gamble. Now maybe you thought you could always put another business like that in there. So to say that we're going to get sued, no, we haven't done anything wrong either. Yeah, I mean, we really haven't. This wasn't that they came to us and asked for the special use. They put the building up as a special use. They always knew that that was a possibility, that it wouldn't always be the case. And if it's in agriculture and it hasn't changed the zoning, then that would be what it would have to revert back to. So I do think it's a complicated case, and I think there's solutions here. But I think the fear, I mean, I am an advocate of protecting our farmland. That is something that we need to do in this county. And if we just continue to allow everything to change to I-1 in the sake of progress, then we really have not been very, we haven't looked at the forethought of where is our food going to come from in the future. How about our water? You know, we have constant problems with drainage in our areas that are built up because the forethought is not there. So I do want to be prudent in that, and I have said that from day one when I got on this board that that is something that we should continue to look at. This is no different. This is a highly agriculture area. Yes, there's 2 parcels up the road in a little ways that are industrial, and this one is in this mixed category. So I do think it's wise for us, sooner than later, to start the process of creating an I-4 so people who are in these situations are not put out, that we have a compromise here, and that the areas that are protecting their farmland can continue to do so, and not just say, oh, well, now there's another I-1, so the rest of LaGrange should just become I-1, because that is the reality of what happens. You got 2 on there now, you got 3, we'll see a case in a year from now, 4th and 5th. So let's have some forethought here, and how we work with the applicant, but also protect what is important to the county.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm getting all the names on top of that, Jackie.
And I appreciate your point of view, Rachel, and I am too very much in favor of protecting farmland. And, you know, I didn't really understand that this was like a special use that we could actually remove, although this came up this morning in our legislative committee. But at the end of the day, there's already a warehouse on it. That's what I see when I look at it, a warehouse. They could grow cannabis in there. They could grow plants of any kind. They could house chickens in there, and it would still be agricultural, and it would look the same. I mean, so they're using it, it looks to be, you know, for landscaping at this point. Those are things that go, we don't eat landscaping, but certainly we produce a lot of it in this country. We've turned all of the desert of Arizona into a damn sod farm. I don't want to see this property lose value or the owner lose value. If in fact this is true, that we issue a special use permit to people with the understanding, and I question whether or not they understand, that we're going to force them to turn it back into a cornfield, I think that's just a stupid policy. And shame on us. Because if people are investing money in a building, that's an improvement to real estate, and it goes with the land. I mean, it becomes a value of the land. I mean, is somebody going to rezone my house? You know, I mean, again, I understand this is a special use permit case, but maybe we shouldn't have special use permit cases where we're allowing somebody to invest this kind of money on real estate that they own, which then this building becomes a part of the value of that land, of their investment.
I agree.
But I don't see us making, you know, I don't see us using this as a case to revert it back to the cornfield. I just can't.
And I'm not advocating for that. I mean, I think that you just gave some perfect examples of ideas of what it could be used for in agriculture. So there are other solutions here besides just rezoning it. I'd like to explore some of those solutions.
Yeah. Well, we're also costing this man money every day that we wait. He's got a real estate agent. They possibly have some potential buyers, and they can't complete that deal. Those buyers are out looking for a different piece of land every day that we sit on this case. And that means the owner could potentially lose his only buyer. And you know, I'm a new real estate agent, so I do understand how these things work.
Well, yeah, I think everyone is.
We're going to let
We do,
Mr.
but
Brown come on up to the podium.
the horse is out of the barn.
After Mr. Brown, we're on.
I just had a couple quick points. One clarification. First and foremost, our previous comprehensive plan, prior to the one that was recently adopted in December, also did not support industrial development in that area. So while it does change, it did say transitional uses, which were less intense uses than industrial. Certainly did not encourage industrial development in the area either. And can I clarify something? Just a question. I noted in the staff report that the Will County Land Resource Management Plan designates the area as rural, and it doesn't encourage rural or industrial development in rural areas. I know there is some language that talks about if you're going to do it, it should be along arterial roads, which I can't really disagree with, but there is also the statement that it's discouraged in those rural areas. And really, certainly I understand that the county has its own process, and you guys are going to do what you're going to do, as the Village of Frankfort is allowed to participate as part of the state statute requirements for the mile-and-a-half review, so I completely understand that. We're simply just asking that we have the ability to complete our review before the county proceeds. It's one of a precedent-setting concern. Not suggesting that this was the intention here, but we didn't receive application from the applicant for our mile-and-a-half review process until December 21st. We believe that we've acted in good faith to bring it through our process as quickly as possible, getting it to Plan Commission on January 9th and our board on the 21st. We're just concerned that if this is the precedent and the county goes and approves this prior to the Village of Frankfort completing its review, then future applicants with similar requests will say, hey, this delay applying to the Village of Frankfort, then you can avoid them having any influence or participation in your process with the county whatsoever. So,
does anybody else? Yeah, just follow up on that. Yeah, quick, and then I'll let him go down from the
Just a couple things to clarify. What we had stated, and I don't know how that's what staff had stated, was the existing comprehensive plan in Frankfort noted the existing use as industrial, not the plan called right, I can say that. But as far as diverting farmland to the A1, it's specifically why we sought the I1 zoning just on the improved 11.95 acres. It's part of a larger 55-acre parcel that will be left with simply A1 without even the existing special use. So all of that, which is unimproved existing farmland, would be preserved under our proposal.
All right, Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to, I would like to see the tabling motion approved, but maybe for a little different reason. I think this does give everyone a chance to sit back, including the applicant, and looking in, and our staff, it does say this is a rural area, it doesn't say it's industrial. And whether this board in this county wants to start designating this area in general as an industrial area. I know we've done a couple industrial zonings there, for like heavy equipment sales and so forth. We have no development plan on this parcel. You could say it's what's there is there, but there could be a bigger use for that parcel. The parcel has not been created. A legal description and a lot has not been created as of yet. I'd like to see that done, actually.
The legal is, Jim, created.
Microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
The legal has been created. It's attached to the application. As far as us filing a petition for division, we're obviously waiting for this to file that across the hall. But that legal exists. We had those separate surveys created.
But you could do that first, too, Ken.
I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would feel more comfortable if the lot was created already.
We can certainly file that petition for
division. Yeah, and this is a recorder of deeds.
All right, supervisor.
Okay. But going on, I'm not so sure this is an industrial area. When we look at what we have developed as industrial parcels, and to use industrial development in this county, and certainly we have no lack of industrial zoning in this county, whether it's in the county or whether it's in municipal boundaries. We have quite a bit of industrial. On the other hand, it's not unusual for a corridor like Route 45, State Highway, or some type of heavier use or commercial use along that roadway, even though this is not a very improved part of Route 45, which is another issue. You know, generally, you're doing some improvements on the road, whether it's turning lanes or deceleration lanes or whatever, even though it may not be required today, it causes a problem further down the line if you continue that industrial type of zoning. You know, I don't think it's an industrial area. I don't think it's agricultural either along Route 45. I do think that there could be some accommodation here, and that's what I'd like to see during that waiting period, to see if there is another zoning. C2, years ago we had, I think it was C5. Snorris Brothers Landscaping was like C5, which is still it, as a matter of fact. I don't think we have the zoning anymore. That did allow heavier uses, but still was fairly compatible with residential areas. But was a heavier use than, say, a C2. I do think our C2, as an example, with the special uses, has pretty extensive uses. When you look at the development of 45, I consider this a little spotty. But when you look what's coming out of the village of Frankfort, along 45 going west, and including what we've zoned going west, it's basically been C2. So I see it more as like a C2 corridor. And if you look at the special uses that may be allowed, maybe that would be a good compromise for both the applicant and the village. Maybe it's, you know, C3 or whatever. But you have to look at all the special uses that would be allowed under C2. So I do think this gives an opportunity to the county, the applicant, to the village, to say, what is this going to be? We don't do it industrial, and I don't think it's redeveloped going forward as industrial, but I do see it as a commercial use down 45. Because everybody, I just want to give everybody a chance to sit down, so I would ask if we table it, that the applicant, Frankfort, the staff, and maybe a county board member, maybe Amanda. Maybe Amanda. Can maybe sit down in a meeting, and maybe there is a really good compromise here, and a good land plan development perspective, doing it the right way.
All right, thanks, Jim. So currently, Steve made a motion to approve, so before any other motions are made, I need a second on that. To approve the map amendment. Well, you can't table something that's not on the floor, so I need a second to put it on the floor. So somebody second Steve's motion, please.
I'll second.
All right. Are there any other motions that anybody wants to make?
I would like to make a motion to table. Second.
Okay, there's a motion to table and a second. If we could have the roll call, please.
Tyler Markham?
Yes.
Just for the table?
Yes.
Mark Ferry?
Yes.
Steve Balich?
No.
Amanda Cook?
Yes.
Jacqueline Trenier?
Yes.
Rachel Ventura?
Yes.
And Tom Weigel?
Yes.
All right, so that motion carries. That is tabled. It'll come back next month. All right, so moving on, we're on to number 3, which is zoning case CC-19-077, which is a special use permit for ancillary liquor services in conjunction with allowed tourism uses, a special use permit for rural events, a special use permit for a landscaping and lawn maintenance business in Joliet Township, commonly known as 2225 Maple Road, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Zoning case CC 19-077, as you mentioned, takes place in Joliet Township. The subject parcel is 10 acres. It is a flag lot with 10 feet of lot frontage, which in previous zoning case actually brought it into compliance. The applicant is requesting 3 different special uses, pretty much dividing the property. The bottom 6.19 acres is for the rural events, which is not to be confused with rodeos. There was some confusion in the Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to that. Rural events generally are your wedding barns, event barns, fundraisers, kind of just in an agricultural setting. So in this aspect, they're looking to do more of a hacienda type venue, where it's authentic Mexican art, furniture, things like that. So the bottom 6.19 acres would be dedicated to that, and in conjunction with the rural events, they're requesting ancillary liquor. They have submitted a liquor application to the county executive's office, and as part of that dual process, they should be pursuing with the executive committee to request an increase in the number of liquor licenses available for their appropriate classification. So this is just addressing the use aspect of it. As for the northern 3.18 acres, or 81 acres, that's for the existing landscaping business that has been in operation for the last 5 years. It did actually come into being when it was previously zoned I-1. They went through rezoning to become A1. So at that time, that's when the landscaping business became not compliant. So they're just looking to bring that landscaping business into compliance. There were some objectors that came out at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, mostly dealing with the concerns of the rodeos in the vicinity, the traffic concerns, the noise complaints, things of those natures. Staff has recommended conditions for all 3 special use requests, mostly dedicated to, with regard to the rural events, to make sure that commercial building codes are followed for sprinkler systems, things of that nature, to make sure that they adhere to the liquor control ordinance. And then the noise, anything related to rural events would be dedicated to the premise. Anything outside of that would require additional zoning action. For the landscaping, they're the typical landscaping business regulations, compliance with the IEPA standards, and so forth. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of all 3 special uses with the recommended conditions. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from committee members? Jackie?
It looks like there's apartment buildings across the street, but yet when I look at these other pictures that were here, it looks pretty rural. And then I see this one that's looks like a fenced-in lot of tractor trailers, which I can't believe we haven't required them to have a solid fence, because we did that in the case, the land use case, along Veterans Parkway and I-55 in unincorporated Will. I don't know why this guy's getting away with it. Maybe I need to file a complaint, although that's not my role in this. And I was just curious, is that where the noise thing comes into play? Is concern about the apartments?
The noise thing comes into complaint, to answer your question, County Board Member Trenier. This property is within a half mile of the Briggs and Roslyn Rodeo, where they had a temporary use for outdoor concerts. We've received several complaints with regard to that property. So it is within that kind of buffer for the noise. I think that's the biggest concern. There's a couple other parcels within this area that we've had some complaints. We just haven't been able to really issue violations for other rodeos and noise complaints in the area as well.
And with only a 10-foot frontage, how could they have and maybe they already have it, and it's just not really pictured in here, a proper driveway entrance to this property, which, by the way, this property is amazing looking. I mean, how they've cleaned up these stables, these stalls, and created these big banquet areas and this beautiful front porch. I mean, the property looks amazing. I could see why they want to do what they want to do, but how are they getting people in and out?
So they have 10 feet of frontage. One of the conditions is to actually show proof of a easement to allow the other 2 parcels that are part of the property. The applicant has widened that 10 feet to 20 feet and has actually improved the property with the shared driveway to the south 10 feet. With gravel, they have speed bump signage with 10 miles per hour, but with any type of building permit or further site development permit required, IDOT approval will be required since Route 6 is under IDOT jurisdiction. So if they see that there's any turn lanes that will be required as part of this early events project, yeah, it would be required to do that for the approval.
And I didn't see it in here, but is there, sorry, a maximum or a minimum capacity for this place? Because to your point about the turn lanes and the number of cars, if they're having an event with 1,000 people and there's 500 cars.
Building codes are going to determine the amount of capacity for the building. The applicant does intend to expand the building slightly just to accommodate a sprinkler system, additional storage, and the health department required a new kitchen. So he's looking to expand the existing building just to accommodate all those requirements.
Yeah, it's really hard to see like the whole driveway thing from these pictures, unless the part of the flat lot that's the driveway is the part where you see them going in the gate.
Jackie, this is a better map. You can kind of see where the red comes down here and comes out.
I see that one.
And then those apartments you're looking at is actually these ones over here off of Mason. So they're actually quite far from the farm, but you gotta like come down this way and then turn here to get onto the property.
I missed this map at the end. Okay, very good.
Other questions?
Yeah. So I'm excited to see someone wanting to use the agritourism liquor license that we introduced earlier this year. This does butt up against District 9. This is in District 8, but Annette and I have received some complaints in areas. So this would be good, I think, to move over to approve the agritourism because of some of the complaints in our district. We want to move those entities into a business capacity that they're following the zoning and the laws as well. So I think this is a good precedence for that. Obviously, you guys can see the location is, they've improved it very well.
Yeah, it's
beautiful. And so I think we should encourage stuff like this, especially since we do have the zoning or the liquor license available for this type of entity. So I do encourage you guys to vote yes on this, and hopefully we'll have some more weddings in our area.
Anybody else on the committee have questions, comments? All right, we had a couple people sign up for this one. Luis Guzman. Do you want to speak, or do you want to speak on behalf, or
Mr. Guzman and I would be happy to answer any questions that any members have.
Anybody have questions for that? There's no questions, so if you guys don't want to say anything, then. Anybody else have anything? All right, so the first thing we're going to need is a motion to approve a special use permit for ancillary liquor.
Motion to approve.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Next, we'll need a motion to approve special use permit for rural events.
Motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we need a motion for to approve a special use permit for the landscaping business.
I'll make a comment real quick. I think this also falls into the same thing we've been talking about. Now this one's different because it was I-1 and then went to A1, but again, these are type of the cases that we're seeing. So I'm going to bring that back to the business. Go ahead.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So that should handle all of that. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming. So now we move on to other business. First up, we have 20-1, which is appeal of Planning and Zoning Commission decision for zoning case ZC-19-068, which is in Green Garden Township, commonly known as 10250 West Stuenkel Road in Frankfort, Illinois, County Board District Number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item here is a appeal of the Planning and Zoning Commission decision for that zoning case ZC 19-067, which was decided back on November 19th of 2019. There were two variance requests as part of that zoning case. A variance for minimum side yard setback from 50 feet to 20 feet over on the west side of the property, and then also a variance for minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 30 feet. At the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there were no objectors present. And staff have recommended denial of both of the variance requests. The Planning and Zoning Commission upheld staff's recommendation. There was a split vote count for these two denials. 2 commissioners voted to approve the variances, 3 voted to deny, and 1 commissioner abstained from voting. And I did include an excerpt of the minutes from that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting as part of the packets for your reference. So the appeal of the Plan Commission's denial of both of those variance requests is before you today.
So really quick, the packet
Yeah, I don't
is not opening anything.
Oh, nothing.
So
I didn't know what the case was.
Yeah.
I went back in a minute, so that's
sorry.
all I knew. So,
I-
so
Was
just
this
so you know, for everything under other business, nothing pops up. So.
I do know that our staff was having some issues with the minute track system, so that may be a result of that.
Is this the case of the chicken coop?
No, this is not. The applicant just wanted to build, there was a residence on the property, and the applicant was looking to build an accessory building, a pole barn on the property.
I don't even remember it. That was November.
You want to build what on the property? A pole barn, so an accessory building on the property.
Do you have any pictures? Can you bring it up on the computer?
I can try to bring them.
I'm so used to getting things on here with no attachments, I can't tell you. So I just assumed they weren't meant to be there.
Okay, yeah, no, I did include an attachment of the applicant's application, of the staff reports, and of the minutes. Maybe you should be.
Do we have?
I would recommend that maybe we should table this then and get that technological issue fixed so that you can see everything that's.
I'll make a motion to table.
We had some people who signed up to
Yeah, can we,
speak.
is there a way to bring it up here on the computer so we can see it? Yeah, we should be able to.
Mr. Producer, do you have any thoughts on this?
To give the applicant a fair hearing, I think he should be fully informed, so I agree, maybe table it to give him another chance if he wants to.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the appeal, the place on the floor. That's on a second for that, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And second.
Can we at least hear the people
Yeah,
speak,
so
though?
then there were some people who came out to speak. So 002, okay, they signed up for the next one. Does anybody in the public want to speak on this one before we take any further action?
Are there any dents?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. Now somebody,
I'm going to make a motion to table it.
Second.
so it's been moved and seconded to table it. We're going to roll call.
Tyler Markham?
Yes.
Mark Ferry?
Yes.
Steve Ballage?
Yes.
Amanda Cook?
Yes.
Jacqueline Trenier?
Yes.
Rachel Ventura?
Yes.
And Tom Weigel?
Yeah.
All right, so then that'll come back next month with our apologies. Next up, we have 20-2, which is appeal planning and zoning commission decision for zoning case VC-19-076, which is also in Green Garden Township, commonly known as 24018 South Center Road and vacant land on South Center Road, Frankfort, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. And we had the same issue with this one, so we'll need a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And second, we did have somebody sign up for this one.
And let's hear what they have to say.
That's what I'm, let me find her.
Applicant's okay to move forward, if that's okay.
You want us?
Move forward, it's okay, I have printouts. Okay, here.
Oh, that's great. I can give a summary then.
Yeah, well, we'll do the summary and then, is that okay, Amanda?
It's obviously up to the committee should they wish to hear the case or table until next month when the items as part of the packet are.
Can we hear the case and then still have the option to table?
Yeah, you can table it anytime up until we vote, so
Yeah.
Amanda, go ahead and.
I did get an email from the southern bordering neighbor to uphold our denial. So I think based on that, I'm going to be in favor of tabling it just so that we can really look at the report because it's not going to be just an easy pass and we've already denied it once. So it reads, Zoning case EC 19-076 had a request for variance for minimum side yard setback from 20 feet to 12 feet off the property line to the south that was denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission on December 3rd. As a property owner of the bordering southern property, we are requesting your support in upholding that denial. We have been trying to have two 55-foot trailers removed from the property for a year. Those are still on site. The neighbor's plan is to build a barn for whatever is in the trailers. We feel with his 9.7392 acres, there is no urgent need to infringe on the 20-foot standard. We will be attending the hearing on January 14th and would appreciate your support. Kind regards, Thomas and Sharon Stack. So I don't know if they're here today, but I wanted to
signed up too, so.
Great.
Let's do just a report and then we'll decide as a committee. So, is that okay with the committee?
I would like to hear the report.
Just so we can hear the report and then let people who signed up speak and then we'll go from there. So, go ahead and give your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, I apologize for that, having no documents as part of the packet. So the appeal APCD 19003 is in relation to a zoning case over in Green Garden Township that was ZC 19076. And this was heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission back on December 3rd. There were two variance requests as part of that zoning case. One request was approved, and the one request was denied. So the variance for the minimum side yard setback from 20 feet to 12 feet over on the southern property line was denied. It was recommended denial by staff. There were objectors present as well, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimously to deny that variance request. The applicant was seeking to build a pole barn on the property along that southern property line and not meeting that minimum 20-foot setback. I could question.
What was approved?
What, I'm sorry?
You said there were two requests, one was approved.
The other variance request was for maximum accessory building area. Staff recommended approval of that request, and the Plan Commission unanimously recommended approval of that request as well.
Did he give the applicant give any reason whatsoever for the request for the smaller setback on the southern border? I mean, did they just not want to chop down a 50-year-old tree or, you know, something that makes some sense?
Sure. So, and I can let the applicant speak to that further, but at the public hearing, the applicant did state that, and a portion of the property is farmed, but it does have adequate frontage to accommodate a 20-foot setback as opposed to just a 12-foot setback.
Yeah, it's a difference of 8 feet. I mean, geez.
Yeah, the applicant had stated that it was due to the configuration of the proposed building and the driveway and making a turn radius into the new proposed building, but he would be able to give further detail than I could.
Anybody else have anything before we have something come up? All right, so first we had, sorry, Peter, I can't read your last name, sorry.
Thank you.
It's not about them. Just state your name for the record.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Wader at 24008 South Center Road. First, I want to say thank you for bringing that up, and Janine, thank you for allowing me to speak in that respect. I did bring an aerial map, which I learned from last time, if I bring something to be able to pass it around. And to answer your question wholeheartedly, I did. That was the main reason of why we had asked for the setback, and I explained that at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It has to do with fencing that is currently on the property to the north of it. And I can pass this around if you want to take a look at it so you can see what I'm talking about.
Janine, can you pull something up on the map here?
I have another copy.
No, I want her to pull the
Just
aerial
the
map.
aerial image?
Yeah, and then you please pass your copies around.
Sure. This is a second copy. Can I pass anybody up? Sorry. I know everyone's been here for quite a bit of time already, so I'll try to keep it nice and short. What it has to do with, spacing in between the property line and existing fencing that's there on 50% of the property. putting the building at the 8-foot reduction, number one is, when you, Mr. Echo, when you said why only 8 feet, is I try to minimize it as best I can. You know, in a perfect world, we all want to build right on the property line, but in respect of the 20 feet that's required and asked for, I did it at a minimum of the 8 feet reduction, which I felt left a nice 12-foot barrier. Keep in mind, as you'll see from the pictures I'm sending, this is wide open land. The only thing that's there besides our existing building is our neighbor's existing garage, which I will add is only 10 feet off the property line, which the neighbor will tell you they didn't build. We didn't build that fence either, or that building. Everything that you see there is existing. The new building that we want to put, if you remember, well, I've been here with my dad all year. We were doing a rezoning, and all that has to do with trailers, which are being removed. Already have received another violation. We opted not to do another temporary use permit, which we've done all of last year, because the intention is to remove these trailers. However, the last piece of the building permit, which I will add, is all approved. The building has been approved, the square footage is approved. The last piece is hinged on this 8-foot relief that we're seeking. Okay, so where you're looking right to, is there a pointer?
It's kind of like right around here, is that right? Can you see?
Yeah, is there a pointer?
I have it up here.
Oh.
But is this about the approximate location you would say?
It's up. You're going to move the building north?
Okay. Let me delete
It's going to be in line, what we're asking for is to be in line with the existing building.
Okay, so the white building that's there.
Yeah, I have the site plan if you guys want to see that.
So you're just looking to put it next to the white building?
Correct, and the problem is that Commissioner Kiefner, what the vote came down to, in my opinion, outside of staff's recommendation, is that Mr. Kiefner, just prior to voting, and I have the minutes here, and you guys also have it in your packets, is he said, I'm looking at Google Maps, and I see you have 60 feet from the north of the building to the fence that you see there. This is the meeting. I printed, this is a transcript of his words. I'll pass this around just so you can see where it's highlighted. So, long story short, Mr. Kiefner, prior to voting, had said that there's 60 feet between that building and the fence. At the time, I had never measured it. It did not sound correct, so I did not feel comfortable to speak against what he was saying. That measurement is 29 feet. It is less than half of what he thought it was. I'm not blaming him. It was probably just we're in a moment we made an error. Because of that 60 feet, he said in that same paragraph, his own words, that you could easily move the building and you'll have plenty of room to operate with a pickup truck and a trailer. As you remember, we talked about a pickup truck in the past that I was purchasing, as well as tractors and farm implements. That measurement of 29.16 feet that you're seeing in front of you right now, if you take away that 8 feet that I'm asking for, leaves us with 21.5 feet. The truck I have outside is 22.5 feet. Just the pickup truck is less than that amount. So again, my father and I don't feel the 8 feet is anything disturbing. It won't impact our neighbors. Our neighbors have been in opposition of it, as Janina stated. But truth be told, there is no reason. It's just because. Yes, ma'am.
Tyler, I'm just going to ask some questions about the map. The neighbors, is that those buildings up just to straight north?
I don't have a pointer, so I'll use my
line.
This is
that's the neighbor.
This is our neighbor's garage.
Oh, see, I thought the neighbor was the people above. Okay. So
no, this is the neighbor. This, what you see here, is a new fence that I've installed. If you guys remember, I don't know if you remember, but I installed it like 220 feet of fencing. So this area is 10 feet. The building would go about here. It's 8 feet less than that building. It's not, this is wide open land.
Okay, now, just another really dumb question. Why not make your building 8 foot shorter? I'm guessing your stuff won't fit in it.
That and the fact that the building at the 50 feet allows for the length of, like, when you're a lot of times you're coming in with a tractor and implement, or when hay trailers get brought in, they're doubled up.
Right.
So you want to pull in, and that's why, and again, this comes down to, when we were here for rezoning from A2 to A1, we were told we don't have enough room. When we went for this variance, the neighbor said we have too much room, and it's always like, it doesn't matter. I could ask you for a purple flower pot, and neighbors are going to object. It's just, it is what it is. And being here, this is the 12th time that I've been in a hearing. I try to be as less obstructive as possible. It's 8 feet. I'm 6.5 feet tall. It's like a foot more than me. It's not. If this was, highly residential, something I totally respected. At that same meeting, the P&Z approved a 1 foot setback in Mokino in a subdivision. It's like, please, it's all I'm gonna say. Like, we want to be done with this. We want to move the trailers like they want to have one. It's in their nose. They'll come up here and tell you they want one. I'm happy to move them. Just let us put up the building.
Where are those trailers? I don't see them in either of these pictures.
They're on the north. They're right where it says rectangle on the map on the bar.
Margie will she'll move the map.
Dang, they're invisible.
Well, I'll just go on Rachel, you can ask the question.
Yes, so is there a reason the barn has to be 8 feet larger? And could you just make the barn
That was my question.
Yeah, well, the fact that because it's a rectangle, we don't put it anywhere else in because that's all being farmed for hay. So if we were to, I guess potentially we could, this is not a life or death situation, we could square it off and make it less of a rectangle. But again, that would impede by the fencing, and it would be a time and money thing and reclaiming of the land that we're farming right now.
Well, you're saying the fencing is for turning in. So I'm saying keep the front of the building where you plan to have it, just the back of the building that's going to be within
Oh, the back's
area.
not the problem, it's the side. This is, you're looking east and west right now.
Yes.
So it's going to be a rectangle, like Miss Farrell, like you see it right there. So it would be narrowing the building, not squishing it this way. Does that make sense?
So with the little cursor, can you point to where the 20-foot variance, 12 to 20 foot, right there?
Right
That's
there.
what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
right there, if you shave off your 8 feet from the building, you can still get in, right? On the north side, you can still make your curve.
Yeah, but then when the problem is the overall length. So like if you have a tractor and a farm implement, or if you
So
have
you're putting a tractor inside of it. You're putting
Oh,
a
yeah,
tractor inside.
like all that stuff you see sitting there is all implements, and then in these, there's a tractor there. There's equipment on the property. It's going to be in there in addition to the hay.
And this is another question, can you turn the rectangle so it's 90 degrees?
Then you're going to block access to the backfield. Like, it's, I mean, we could, you could put it in the middle of the property, that's, that was what was brought up by objection, but again, then you're taking away from, number one, that's always kind of been a staging area of the property, meaning gravel, things being parked there. So like as you were discussing in previous cases of respecting agricultural land, we're trying to keep everything in accordance. Looking nice.
Yeah.
Keep
You
it
can see where the trailers were directed. Just circling on there.
So
those are them?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are going to come out.
All right, so we also had somebody else sign up to speak, Sharon the staff. Come on down.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year. Hello, I'm Sharon Stack, 24028 South Center Road, Frankfort, Illinois. I am the neighbor directly south of the property. My husband and I are against the setback from 20 feet to 12 feet. We do feel, again, with the combined property, the neighbor does have plans. He has 2 parcels, and he does have plans to combine the properties. And with that, he will have the 9.7392 acres or whatever that he needs. And we feel it's sufficient property to be able to build without infringing on that 20-foot setback. So I know that there's a small fence there to the north of his building area that he wants to have, but it's an electric fence. It's move the stakes, put the wires a different place. It's not some gigantic fence that is going to take a lot to move. It's an electric fence. I do agree with him that our garage is 10 feet off the property line. Again, the garage has been there for 40 years, and as I told the planning committee last time, if we ever have to get our garage, change it or, upgrade it or whatever, and it's time for a new garage, then we will follow the 20-foot setback because that's the law. I just don't feel, and my husband, we've been here, every single time, 12 times, 13 times, as many times. We really feel it's important to abide by what the Planning Commission has recommended, what the committees have recommended, and, just continue with the denial of the difference in the setback.
Thank you.
Another question about the map?
Is your map question?
So where you see the 2 cars in the brown building, is that brown roof that I'm looking at, is that a house? Is that garage?
It's a shade house for horses. It's just a shade house for horses.
No, I think she's talking at the bottom of the car. Below the white existing barn.
That's their garage.
That's your garage. Where's your house?
Right next to that. You can't see
Oh, see, I can't see it in
It's
my
under the
picture.
white, with the measured distance, you see a little bit of the house.
it. Where my hand's at.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make a quick point of clarification, because this is something that has been brought up about the Stacks garage. So back when that was built, setbacks were different for the A2 zoning district. And while we have not done extensive research into it, the 10-foot side yard setback more than likely would have been what the rule was at that time. So just to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody on the committee have any other questions? So, the first thing we're going to need is a motion. Do we already have a motion on the floor? Yeah, we have. Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. Does anybody want to do anything else? Make any other motions? Oh, okay. So your motion was to approve the appeal, correct? Would be the correct motion, right? To approve the appeal.
Yeah, and I'm in favor.
All right.
Okay, I have a question for the
Rachel?
applicant. So she made the point about the electric fence being moved. I do know that that takes some money to move an electric fence.
Yeah, it's not me that's styrofoam. It's that fencing, the map I passed around, you might see it better. It's not just that piece. There's roughly like 22 or 2,300 feet of fencing, because the northern building you see there is a barn, is a livestock barn. There's no animals currently in there. I did recently purchase a horse for my daughters that's being stabled around the corner at a ranch nearby. But that's meant for...
What's the blue structure on here, just north of?
That's a tarp covering equipment.
Oh, equipment.
Yeah, that's because it's outside right now because I have nowhere to put it. That's a tarp, like a little tarp. Yeah.
And where's the electric fence?
It runs, so right where the arrow's at, it runs from here up all the way to
So
the
the
back.
tarp equipment is just north of the fence, but it would be stored in the barn then?
Well, yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's sitting outside, and to me, that's an eyesore as well, whether snow or rain or whatnot. It would be for what my neighbor is saying is just move the posts and things, reconfiguring the entire layout of the fencing, which I might add is not something that we did. Again, this was put there before we bought it. It's kind of like saying, hey, take your fence and do a little kick out here because I want to put my air conditioning on this side of the house. I don't see the point. I mean, we're talking about 8 feet. It's not invasive, doesn't hurt a single soul.
Do you have an application in now to merge these two properties?
It's already been done. Janine can verify for you. It was done well at the beginning of last year. It had to be done actually prior to the map amendment request we had, and it still stands.
And did that change the setbacks at all, or the case the same?
No, it is still 20 feet.
Amanda?
Quick question. I see you have the trailers all the way at the top. Is there a reason why you're storing stuff there now and want the barn in a different spot?
Yeah, there's some, so currently where that building is going to go, like I mentioned, it's kind of the staging area, and because of the trailers are elevated. You have to kind of, when you're pulling up to them, you have to be here versus being on the ground. So that was just the way, well, two reasons. The first one was to keep it away from my southern neighbor because there's things like this that come up. So one was to keep it as far as away from them, but also so because of the existing building there, so when pulling up to something, you didn't have to kind of work on an angle like this. Because if you're lifting it up to like 5 feet, it's, for my back, really.
Do you use the electric fence now to housing?
Just as a perimeter, it's not electrified, only as a perimeter. My dad's got a dog, which was out there. My kids sometimes go out there after cutting, we'll ride four-wheelers or whatnot and stay in the fencing, but it's not electrified.
So I'm going to just speak real quick as the commissioner of this area. I think this barn would be an improvement because we would not have tarps and trailers. I do understand the conundrum you're in with moving the fence. I've hobbied enough in this kind of stuff to appreciate the amount of work involved in that. I don't think that if it was 2 feet from the property line, I'd have a huge issue with this, but I do agree that 12 feet is a fair setback. So I think I am inclined to approve this going forward. I just wanted to mention that to the fellow commissioners.
Thank you. So does anybody else have anything else for the good of the cause?
to approve the appeal means we're going to allow the 12-foot variance.
So the vote is to approve the appeal.
Yes.
So everybody's clear, so if you want to allow it, then vote yes. So we're going to do a roll call for this one.
Tyler Markham?
No.
Mark Ferry?
No.
Steve Balich?
Yes.
Amanda Cook?
Yes.
Jacqueline Trenier?
Yes.
Rachel Ventura?
Yes.
And Tom Weigel?
Yes.
All right, so that motion carries, and just so you know, it will take 20 affirmative votes on the county board to overturn a planning and zoning appeal.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your time.
All right, so that takes care of that one. Next up, we have authorizing an extension for a special use permit, SEXT-19-002 for zoning KZC-17-036, which is in Crete Township, commonly known as vacant property on East Goodenow Road in Crete, Illinois, County Board District Number 1. So we had the same issue with this one.
Correct. So I will, if you would want, I can just give a brief overview of what the special use extension is, to see if the committee would like to then table it or move forward.
Yeah, you can give.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So you can give your.
Okay. So special use extension, SEXT 19-002 is in relation to zoning case DC 17036, which was a special use permit for a solar farm over in Crete Township off of Goodenow Road. This was actually the first solar farm that was approved back on January 18th of 2018. As you may recall, we had done an update to the zoning ordinance to allow for a special use permit to have an initial term of 2 years. So the applicant is now coming up on the end of year 2 for this special use permit. So this would technically be the first extension of said special use permit, and it would bring the new expiration date to July 16th of 2020. The applicant has applied for the site development permits for the solar farm facility. They are currently under review with the land use department staff as we speak, and the applicant does intend and hope that this permit would be issued well before that July date for the expiration. As a reminder, the special use or the site development permit would have to be issued in order for the special use to not become void. So I can take any questions you may have.
Questions?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do you have a question too?
And I'm tickled pink. I had the inspector at my house yesterday, so I got to brag a minute. I got my final okay from the building department in Bolingbrook for my solar panels. And now I am just waiting for ComEd to say, yes, I can go outside and turn the switch. So I'm very excited about this one, and I'm more than happy to extend their special use permit time.
Anybody else?
I'll second that. I'm excited to see solar farms coming to Will County, and if we have to extend this, that's great, but hopefully we'll see the other ones who won the lottery as well. So
Does anybody from the public want to speak on this one? All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the extension. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So that concludes our business. And now we're on the reports, communications, and correspondence.
So I want to bring up the new business. Maybe we create a new zoning I-A, and with the focus of industrial that would support maybe agricultural uses. It would be more restrictive than I-1 with the thought process of with permissive uses that maybe blend into some of the agriculture based on some of the cases we've seen. So since it is going to be a lengthy process, starting it sooner than later would probably be better. So what would be the correct directive action?
So I was going to comment on that. So it sounds like the committee wants to look at our industrial zoning. So I'll make a request at the next executive committee to have it assigned, and then we can go from there, and then staff can have their direction of what they need to do exactly.
So do they assign it here? Where do they assign it?
At the executive committee, and then they'll assign it to us.
Okay.
And then that way staff has direction, and we can kind of talk about what we're looking for and what we want to go forward. So it'll be next
And why does it have to go to executive before it's our committee?
Everything.
Everything gets assigned through executive committee per our rules.
And nobody wants to change the
Oh, I'm
rules,
sorry,
Rachel,
I'm
remember?
I mean, I think I said as well, is that historically, it's best to go through executive so that the executive committee is aware of potential changes and is it the desire of the executive committee to do it. And that, so that as we go through the process, when it does circle back to them, there's no surprises and they know that that's what they authorized to be looked at.
All right, so next month we'll be discussing that. You had something else, Brian? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also would like to ask that this committee assign building code update to the at executive committee to the land use committee. The reason for that is the county has currently adopted the 2012 International Code Council codes, building code. It's 2020, and the code updates happen every 3 years for new codes, but typically the county has adopted them every 6 years. So the next set of codes that's available right now is the 2018 codes, and many communities in Will County and around the country have adopted the 2018 codes in the last few months or last year. So we're looking to have that matter assigned to this committee to evaluate the adoption of those codes and any possible local amendments.
These are state codes?
This is the International Code Council's code. It's not the state of Illinois' codes. The state of Illinois has their own plumbing code and their own energy code, and there's other codes that the state has that we have to follow no matter what. We don't have to, they're adopted by reference, but whenever the state adopts them, we automatically have to follow those codes. These are specific codes that the county would adopt for the unincorporated areas. Okay. Mainly building, electric, mechanical, those types of codes.
I misunderstood. You're saying we're in 2012 codes and you're wanting to have
Correct.
assigned us adopting the 18. I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought you meant we were going to adopt the 2012, and that's what kind of blew me through a loop, because that's like 8 years ago.
The International Code Council does a new set of codes every 3 years. So there was a 2015, now there's a 2018, and the county has typically done it every 6 years, so that you're not coming back every 3 years and updating a new set of codes. So,
while I understand that's a big headache for everybody involved, and I'm not trying to minimize that, I will say that I don't know bupkis about electric other than you flip the switch or you plug it in, right? But when I just got my solar panels, when they sent the plans out, my village upgraded them. Said you couldn't install it with this particular kind of conduit, you had to do this more safer. I'm going to say safer because I'm assuming that's the only reason we have building codes. Safer conduit. And the company that was doing the install, and by the way, they were union electricians, they didn't catch the change because it wasn't communicated to them. And so they had to come back out and redo it. But clearly there's some concerns, or they wouldn't have, the Village of Bolingbrook wouldn't have requested this more safe conduit. So it kind of worries me a little bit that we're this far behind. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to point out, all the times I came forward with information, we do not have to follow the state of Illinois laws. We can create our own laws according to the state. Remember, I gave everybody, for new people, I got documents from the state that says that we can create our own ordinances for building codes. We don't have to follow anything. And then they also told us that they will not prosecute us for not obeying their codes, that we're on our own. So I just want to point that out, that going forward, yeah, we're going to look at it. And I was on that committee before, and you guys were not in charge then, and it was ran through. They wouldn't let me talk, basically. Every time I brought up an objection, our former chair guy from the land use kind of like just ignored it and was put to the side. And this time, you know, if we're going to redo it, let's do it the right way so I don't have to come back and try and make amendments to the rules.
Good thought.
Rachel?
Yeah, so I guess I do want to clarify that we will be discussing the international ones and not the state ones that we are obligated to follow. But more to Jackie's point is, I like that it's the international codes. And the reason I asked about the Illinois thing is because in Germany, they have the German passive house, and the building codes allow for better energy efficiency. So I don't know if any of that's in here now, but I know like Joliet, they changed their building codes on putting black pipe or gas lines down. It used to be like 2 or 3 feet, and now it's 60 inches or 5 feet down. So yes, it's supposed to be to the
Safer.
Yeah, safer so it doesn't freeze or whatnot. So thanks for bringing those forward. I'm looking forward to maybe seeing some more energy efficiency building codes moving forward, because again, I think that's forward thinking. Thanks.
All right, so we have those 2 things that I'll ask to be assigned to our committee for February, for next month. So I guess that would be my report. Committee members, anything else? David?
Nothing.
All righty. Any other? No. Public comment? Yes, you can come down. Just all we need is your name for the record.
I'm slow, I'm getting there.
Oh, it's okay. We're not used to somebody actually staying for our entire meeting, so you just won an award.
Oh.
Yep.
Don't throw darts at my back. I need
No.
My name is Troy Adcock, and you want my address too?
No, just so we only need your name.
Oh.
Not your address.
Didn't know if you was gonna check me out on Google
No,
or not.
No.
Just wanted to thank everybody again here. I was sat here through the whole meeting. You guys do a great job. And I want to thank the PZZ committee also. I was here mainly for the program that got withdrawn. It was interesting. It's a relief to know that you guys are doing, we're all going to work together on that. And a few things that I did want to point out, because I was on the list to speak for that. There's something that needs to be brought out about that. And to answer one of Steve's questions that he was asking, there was 2 violations that they said is on there. Something the whole committee, and I want everybody to know for the record, that company has only been in business for a few years. There's 83 pages of violations that that company has in the few years they've been open. That's what we're fighting over there with. So yeah, they got 2 violations that are active. That's what we're dealing with. That the poor Will County, all these people are constantly going out there with. So when they say they came out there, yeah, they cut down all the trees before they even came up with. They clear cut every tree out there before they even went out there. And we're stuck with that. The floodplain, they're ready to fill it in until they got stopped. The homeowners are getting flooded out right now. That's what's in the pictures that you guys see. It's sad. So I'm glad that they finally withdraw, but we're going to have to stay on top of this so that they don't do this. And a new thing that came up that I was interested in, that's why I'm glad I stuck around. You guys are updating your code. I hope you guys are going to be going into the HTP materials and all that kind of stuff for water mains. That's much more efficient stuff to use. A lot of the counties in southern Will County or communities are all using that, so I hope you guys make that permanent for Will County. It's a product that they're using overseas. A lot of counties are using it. So it's just something to think about when you're looking at the codes, because everybody's using ductile iron now, and they're like, yeah, it's 3 times the cost. You can use this new material, saves the taxpayers money. So just thought I'd throw that out there for you. But you guys are doing a great job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You guys have a great
Yeah, thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else? Anybody else from the public? Anybody else from the public? All right, we don't need executive session, correct? That's correct. That's why you keep getting the big bucks. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion. Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Our next meeting will be February 11th, 2020 in this room.